Greetings, weary travellers, coming out of the cold, and join me for a very special mini-episode of the Innsmouth Book Club podcast. I'm Tim Mendes, and as you can see, I've brought you into the back room of the Ye Olde Innsmouth Bookshop for a little festive treat. Now, people who joined us for our last proper episode will know that we did it on Willem Hopfrog Pugmire's little festive horror story, Oh Christmas Tree, and what a belter it is as well. Now, that story is prefaced by 4 lines from a poem by the name of Yule Horror by H.P. Lovecraft, and that got me thinking, because it's one of those things I don't know a lot about the Lovecraft Circle and their attitudes towards Christmas and all that kind of business. So this set me off down a rabbit hole, as these kind of questions often do. And I ended up pulling out books of letters and all that kind of stuff. And I found a whole bunch of Christmas-related things in relation to the members of the Lovecraft Circle. So I thought I'd bring you here today and share some of this with you. Now, this is the tip of the iceberg. There's quite a lot. I didn't realise this. There's actually quite a few bits and pieces kicking around the place. So this may be revisited next year. I may do a sequel to this next year. So yeah, while Rob is off seeing his ancestors on the back of a Biaki, I'm here in the back room of the bookshop with a bottle of the finest Innsmouth sherry, which I wrestled from the comatose hands of Zadok Allen. So if you would like to pour yourself a glass, what I'll do before I start properly is I'll read you a few Innsmouth Christmas cracker jokes that I happened to find when I was down the Gilman Hotel having a few drinkies the other night. Yeah, we pulled a few crackers and it all went wrong. No smutty innuendo, please. About pulling a few crackers. Oh, dearie, dearie me. I've got to lower the tone even if Rob isn't here. Righty-ho, here we go. Here's the first one. Are you ready for this? This is terrible. How do you make Cthulhu laugh? Give him 10 tickles. Oh, dearie, dearie me. I'm afraid they don't get any better than that. Next up we have, what do they sing at Ithaca's birthday party? Free's a jolly good fellow. Oh, dearie, dearie me. What does Cthulhu have for lunch? Fish and chips, of course. Badum. Oh dear. Final one, I promise. Why did Dagon get fired from his job as a lifeguard? Because he couldn't help making waves. Oh dear. Oh dear, they're Rob levels of punnery, aren't they? They're quite terrible. Anyway, I hope that's got you in the festive mood. Right, yeah, so as I was saying, I went down a whole research rabbit hole, going through various books of letters and things like that I have in my possession. There's quite a few that I don't have, so these are ones I'm going to delve into the next year, I reckon. Because I think this should be a recurring thing. It's quite a fun little concept. But something else I will have for next year is something I didn't know existed until the other day. This is a little book by the name of Christmas with H.P. Lovecraft, edited by N.R. Jensen Jones in London. It's put out by Helios House Press, and it came out last year. It's only a pamphlet, it's 48 pages, but it's really quite interesting. As you'd imagine from the title, it's just all stuff relating to Lovecraft and Christmas. A lot of it is excerpts from letters, and he had a little habit of sending little Christmas rhymes to various members of the Lovecraft Circle, people like Reinhard Kleiner and Samuel Loveman and that kind of thing, right? We will be looking at a couple of those in a bit because they're sent to a rather strange recipient, and it's absolutely brilliant in my opinion. There's also various other poems in there. There's the two of the poems that I'm going to read for you in a moment. Along with like several others. It also contains the festival. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking you can't do Lovecraftian Christmas without reading the festival. Now, I'm not going to read you the festival for the simple reason I've already read it. I've already done it. You'll find it in the Innsmouth Book Club archive. It is lurking there. I think it may have been last year. It could have even been the year before that I did it. I can't remember which way round it was, but I have definitely read it before, and it is up online. So, as this whole thing was kicked off by the fact that an excerpt of Yule Horror was used to preface W.H. Pugmire's O Christmas Tree, I think it only fitting that I start off by giving us a reading of that very poem. Now, Yule Horror was published in Weird Tales Volume 8, Issue 6, which was the December 1926 issue. So there you go. Farnsworth Wright accepted it. There you go. So it must be good. Long-time listeners of our sister podcast, Strange Shadows, will know about the whole debacle with Farnsworth Wright accepting things and not accepting things, and, you know, that kind of business. So here we go. This is Yule Horror by H.P. Lovecraft. There is snow on the ground, and the valleys are cold, and a midnight profound blackly squats o'er the wold, but a light on the hilltops half seen hints of feastings unhallowed and old. There is death in the clouds, there is fear in the night, for the dead in their shrouds hail the sins turning flight, and chant wild in the woods as they dance round the Yule altar, fungus and white. To no gale of earth's kind sways the forest of oak, where the sick boughs entwined by mad mistletoes choke, for those powers are the powers of the dark from the graves of the lost druid folk. There you go. I think that's tremendous. I really like that poem. Yeah, it's the second stanza that's used in the Pugmire story, the one that ends with the Yule altar, fungus and white. And I think it's really fitting to go into a story about a killer Christmas tree. So there you go. Yeah, that's Yule Horror, and that's actually available in the book Christmas with H.P. Lovecraft. Now, that was a very Lovecraftian take on a Christmas poem, wasn't it? It's all about sort of dark things lurking in the shadows and all that kind of good stuff, right? But most of Lovecraft's Christmassy poems are not like that at all. They're actually quite traditional, because that's something that surprised me, that of all of the Lovecraft circle, it's HPL himself who seems to be the most festive. The one that's got this reputation of being this dour, antisocial misanthrope who lives the life of a hermit is the one that was there every year sending out people Christmas verses, and he had a very traditional English view of Christmas. That was kind of the Christmas he aspired to, according to research, you know, that kind of thing. He liked that very traditional Victorian Christmas, you know. You can just imagine Lovecraft sitting there playing parlour games, can't you? It's just one of those very strange things. In fact, there's a GIF with Lovecraft in a Santa's hat, raising a glass against the window while a load of his creations sit round a table. Now, I've got that image now burned into my head of Lovecraft there, you know, doing that, but it'd be like Frank Belknap Long and R.H. Barlow and these other people, because more on Long and Barlow later, but for now I'll give you a taster of more traditional Lovecraft Christmas poetry. This was from really early in his writing career. It comes from the Tryout 6, number 11, from November 1920, and it is entitled Christmas. The cottage hearth beams warm and bright, the candles gaily glow, the stars emit a kinder light above the drifted snow. Down from the sky a magic steals to glad the passing year, and belfries sing with joyous peals, for Christmastide is here. There you go. That is the sort of thing you could actually quite easily see inside a Hallmark card, isn't it? One of those cards you get from Clinton's that has like the traditional like holly wreath kind of motif on the front of it and all that. Oh, somebody needs to draw me a tentacular holly wreath. That'd be brilliant. So yeah, I mentioned Frank Belknap Long. Now, this is somebody, one of the members of the Lovecraft Circle, which Lovecraft actually met in person and spent time with. During these meetings, Mr. Lovecraft made friends with a creature by the name of Felis, which is Frank Belknap Long's cat. Now, if you're listening to us on Buzzsprout and things like that shows the cover, you will see that I have found a picture. That picture there of Lovecraft holding a cat, that is him holding Frank Belknap Long's cat. That cat there is Felis. That is why I chose that picture, so there you go. Now, when Christmas came around, Lovecraft, you know, he liked his little literary jokes, didn't he? And you know, things like that. So instead of sending Frank Belknap Long Christmas poems, he decided to send one to his cat. So here we go. Here's our next excerpt. This is Christmas Greetings to Felis, little tiger, burning bright, with subtle Blakish light. Tell what visions have their home in those eyes of flame and chrome. Children vex thee, thoughtless, gay, holding when thou wouldst away. What dark lore is that which thou, spitting, mixest with thy meow? I love that. That's absolutely great. It's very Ulthar, isn't it? But yeah, what dark lore is it that you spit mixed with your meow? I like that. Yeah, it's not so much dark lore. I've always thought of it as obscenities. You know, I had a cat that I swear was telling me to fuck off. You know, oh, she was a bad-tempered little moggy, that one. But yeah, that was a good one. And Lovecraft obviously had tremendous fun doing that, because the very next year he decided to write another one. So here we go. This is Christmas Greetings to Felis, number 2. Haughty Sphinx, whose amber eyes hold the secrets of the skies, as thou ripplest in thy grace round the chairs and chimney place, scorn on thy patrician face, hiss not harsh, nor use thy claws on the hand that gives applause. Goodwill only doth abide in these lines at Christmas tide. Yeah, brilliant stuff. Yeah, like I say, a lot of the poems are quite they're very light-hearted and sort of lighted touch. Like this little one here that he sent to Laurie A. Sawyer. So this is Christmas Greetings to Laurie A. Sawyer. As Christmas snows, as yet a poet's trope, call back one's bygone days of youth and hope. For Merrick lines I send, they're quite enough, though once I'd fancy I could write the stuff. So yeah, that's kind of the extent of a lot of them. They're just little throwaway verses that you would include in letters and things like that, which is it's a nice sentiment, isn't it? It's that whole thing, the thought that counts. The fact that he sat there and came up with it is means a lot more than people spending a fortune on presents and that kind of stuff. Now, yeah, once I'd got into looking at Lovecraft, because there's like I say, there's quite a lot. I've barely scratched the surface on Lovecraft, and he is definitely the most sort of prolific writer of Christmas stuff. I decided to go into the other members of the circle. Now, I found a very bittersweet one here. This is from Eyes of the God, the weird fiction and poetry of R.H. Barlow, who's a long-time contributor. Actually did some work with Lovecraft, and yes, last year I did a reading of The Battle That Ended the Century, which he co-wrote with H.P.R. Now, the Christmas after H.P. Lovecraft sadly passed, he wrote this little poem here. It was included in The Shuttered Room from Arkham House, which was mostly August Derleth posthumous collaborations, but it had a few other bits and pieces in there. And yeah, this is Letter for Last Christmas. We have stood several times at the place where Penn Station goes underground, and I have said, Belknap, Howard is this or that, but I never knew either of you. You encompass your apartment house with envelopes, exclaiming upon the wound-out words of Troy, I buy my beer alone. Ah, Belknap, is there no word from Howard since his death? Yeah, it's quite it's a heavy one, that. I like it. It's yeah, it conveys a lot of you're missing your friend and you're remembering, the last Christmas that you'd corresponded with him and things like that. Because again, Barlow is one of the people that Lovecraft actually visited and stayed with. So, yeah, him and Frank Belknap Long were quite close to HPL. So, yeah, I can imagine he left a big Cthulhu-shaped hole in their lives, So as I started looking more into the rest of the Lovecraft circle at large, as I say, a lot of them weren't as into Christmas as HPL. And there's not a lot in some of the books I have. I mean, there was nothing really between Samuel Loveman and Clark Ashton Smith and things like that. But this doesn't mean that some of them didn't do some Christmassy fiction. Now, Robert Bloch, in 1987, wrote a novelette by the name The Night Before Christmas. Now, this isn't a supernatural story. Instead, it's quite a brutal psychological horror story. It's about a painter who's hired to do a portrait of a man's very beautiful wife, and clandestine rumpy-pumpy ensues. So the cuckold takes a particularly brutal revenge upon the two that did these misdeeds against him. It's a nice little story. Nice is probably the wrong word, but it's a good little story. It's very Robert Bloch. It's very Robert Bloch in his later career. He went in for a lot of those kind of stories that were basically like taking a hammer blow to the back of the head, and that is one of them. Basically, it's quite humorous as well in parts, which is something I wasn't expecting. But yeah, it's well worth a read. Now, another one who wrote a Christmas story was, surprisingly, Robert E. Howard, and this is a very, very traditional Christmas story. Now, he did write this. This is kind of what you'd class as juvenilia. The story goes by the name of Golden Hope Christmas. He wrote it while he was still at Brownwood High School, and it was published in the December 22nd, 1922 issue of the Tatler, which was the school's newspaper. Our school didn't have a newspaper. I think that's really disappointing. Although, yeah, I imagine a school newspaper in Macclesfield would have been a sight to behold. But there you go. So it's probably a good thing there wasn't one. Golden Hope Christmas centres around a notorious Texas gunman by the name of Red Gallinan. To cut a long story short, the gunman plots to kill a rival outlaw, but upon hearing the man singing "Hark the Herald Angels Sing," is moved by the spirit of Christmas to change his ways. That's the sort of story you could really see being turned into one of those uber-saccharine TV movies, the Hallmark TV movies they have in the States, couldn't you? that overly saccharine choral music. I could just picture it. It would be terrible. But I imagine if Robert E. Howard had anything to do with it, it'd have to have lots of people getting shot in the face. Good old Two-Gun Bob. Now, after Lovecraft himself, I think the person who took Christmas the most seriously was probably August Derleth. Now, that probably shouldn't come as much of a surprise considering his religious leanings. In fact, he did pen quite a few wintry tales. None of them were specifically Christmas, but he did write several stories set around Christmas, if you know what I mean. It's like that whole Die Hard thing, isn't it? Is it a Christmas movie? Isn't it a Christmas movie? Obviously, there's the whole Ithaca cycle of stories. They were all set in the snow, in wintertime, blah, 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 blah. And, but one that does spring out to me as one that I would say is possibly a Christmas story was 1939's Drifting Snow, which is a weird vampire tale about psychic snow vampires. It's quite a good one. I'd never read it until the other day. Anyway, that was published in Weird Tales in 1939. And it's quite a good little story. It's one of those ones that a lot of people have done readings of online. So if you want to hear it, just go on YouTube and type in Drifting Snow by August Derleth, you'll find it. Now, in Eccentric Impractical Devils, which is the letters of August Derleth and Clark Ashton Smith, I went through year by year, and every single year August sent Clark Ashton Smith a Christmas postcard. which, again, it's a nice sentiment, isn't it? Smith doesn't say a lot about Christmas in the letters to August Derleth. I'll be interested to read in the volume of Dawnwood Spire that Rob has if there's any mentions of Christmas with HPL. Again, this can go for next year, because I had a look in the volume that I had, and there was just a couple of little bits which I will get to in a moment. But Derleth, every year without fail, he would send a card, and they all had a different greeting in them. Now this one is from mid-December 1931. August W. Derleth wishes you a very Merry Christmas and a most happy New Year, and hopes the coming year will be kind to you. Yeah, I mean, again, that's a nice sentiment, especially considering Smith's health issues and things like that, and the fires, because I think that was the year, 31, I think that was the year that there'd been the wildfires and all that kind of stuff. I could be mistaken on that. I'm sure our Auburn correspondent will correct me. Season's greetings, Nils. And yes, but Smith did reply about this specific card, in a letter dated December the 21st, 1931. Thanks for the distinctive Christmas card. I too might have had something personal to send out in the form of a linoleum cut, if I had had my nerve and my wits about me. I was scolded yesterday by a girl who does that sort of thing very well, because I hadn't asked her to make me one. She would have certainly done a good job, but it hadn't occurred to me that she would want to bother. My best to you for the coming year, as ever, Clark Ashton. So, yes, so there you go. And I don't know whether he ever did get around to get his linoleum cuts, because he doesn't mention them again in letters to Derleth. In fact, Derleth sends him cards, but Smith never sort of mentions it. I don't know whether that's because the letters themselves are missing, because there is ones that are missing and things like that. So it is always possible that he did send something out and we just don't know. So if anybody knows if he did ever send out his linoleum cuts, please do let me know, because I'm really intrigued to know about this. Now, something else that August Derleth would do was similar to Lovecraft, is he would send out his correspondence seasonal verses, and he sent one to Clark Ashton Smith on the 22nd of November 1933. This is called First Snowfall. All that last day the red of oak, and your face drawn in leaf fire smoke, and all that night the silent snow, in the dry leaves the secret snow. Now December and your lovely eyes, crystals of snow against the dying year, each whispering flake your pale, shy cries, remembered I shall not know winter fear. Again for this sweet and fragile memory of you and a first snow falling silently. That's really nice, isn't it? It's interesting, because I think that's the first poem of August Derleth's that I've read, except other ones in the letters, things like that, you know. Because you don't really think of Derleth as being a poet, but that's actually really good. So yeah, bravo. Now, I mentioned very briefly there that Mr. Lovecraft did send something to Clark Ashton Smith. Now, this was a printed card which he sent in late December 1933. Now, I know our listeners are going to get a kick out of this one. It doesn't have a return address, but the whole thing is basically like one of his return addresses. So here we go. This is a printed card from H.P. Lovecraft to Clark Ashton Smith. In Sarthogua's name, for the nighted solstitial Sabbath, HPL. There we go. That's Lovecraft's Christmas greeting to Clark Ashton Smith. Absolutely tremendous stuff. Now, like I say, I did look through Clark Ashton Smith's poetry, and while he didn't do anything very specifically about Christmas, he did write a really nice poem called December. So I'm going to end this little segment with a reading of that. So thank you for joining me, and hope you'll join me again if I decide to do this again. I think I will. I think I'll have another look into this stuff for next year. If you know of things that I will have missed or haven't got round to yet, and you think I should cover them for next year, drop me a line, let me know. Just shoot things in my direction, and I will get them in next year's little festive mini special episode. Why not? Why not? So yes, and thank you for that, and I hope you will be joining us in the new year when normal service will be resumed. For now, best festive wishes from me, Tim Mendes, and I hope you all are having a good one, whether you celebrate it or not. And I will leave you with this. This is December by Clark Ashton Smith. From the sad leaves withdrawn, remote, estranged, and cold, forgetful autumn's gold alone abides in some December dawn. Tearless and clear and chill as eyes that have forgot, far love or find it not, the pale bright heavens arc the barren hill. Now in this afternoon, enchanted, blue and brief, the year has lost its grief in valleys mute below the spectral moon. For here no morning dove laments the season flown, on love that wanders lone falls the blue balm of silence from above. For here no zephyr grieves to tell the year's dead dream, and down the pine-lulled stream lost memories drift and loiter with the leaves.